Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks. Peggy, you have a term that I absolutely love, and I need to use it more. What is time poverty?
Time poverty is that feeling that you get to the end of your day wondering, like, where'd the day go? And why did I not have time for what was important? We set out with all these amazing intentions, what we're going to get done, and then poof, the day goes by and things didn't go as planned.
I, not to steal your thunder, I gave a little presentation at a chamber yesterday, and that was one of the things that kind of started off with was, do you ever get to the end of the day and feel like, what did I do? It's almost like you have amnesia. It's like when you drive to work and I don't know how I got here. I know I took the same route, but I think we do that all of the time and not just, that not for busy professionals, but for entrepreneurs too. So when, so how did you come up with that term and who do you see that hit the most with?
Yeah, I mean, originally I called myself a busyness addict in recovery. But what I discovered about that terminology is people love being busy. It's a status symbol, it's a sign of importance. That doctor's so busy, I can't get in to see him for 6 months. It's
Right.
worth the rate. My next door neighbor works 11 hours a day. He's a rock star, he's been promoted, and the list goes on and on. And so the reality is people love being busy,
Oh
but
yeah.
people don't like being time poor, not having enough time for what's important. And I learned that there's a distinction between the two. So being busy is great and people love it, but we need to be intentionally busy. We need to focus on the right things, not let the wrong things get in our way, like distractions, multitasking, the email rabbit hole,
Hmm.
interruptions, all those things that take us away from what we should be doing, what we need to be doing.
The I'm busy as a badge of honor has jumped the shark, so to speak. Jumped the shark. Happy days. Look it up. It's worth it. And that's so anybody. And so we got two teen girls and a soon to be teen boy in the house. I'm an unpaid Uber driver with a 1.5 star rating with my kids. We are quote unquote busy, but I've had to stop myself from when somebody, Peggy, how you been? Well, we just been so insert busy. And I don't know. It's weird how we take pride in that. You would never think to say, if somebody's asking you about your health and well being, well, we just eat all the time. I went to the Golden Corral buffet today and then I ate a bag of I've just been eating all the time. But that's, to me, is kind of the same thing is that busy with no intention and then bragging about it is one of the craziest things I think that we do. So tell me if I'm being too intrusive. You got a little backstory on busy as a badge of honor, right?
I sure do. I worked in corporate America for 25 years and I
Ooh.
loved it. I had amazing jobs. I traveled the world. I worked for big brands like USA Today and Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Health. It was an amazing career. But I was tired and I was stressed and I was overwhelmed. And while I was doing well, I had a series of wake up calls and I wasn't listening to them. They kept on happening. And finally, it was like a series of things that happened that I couldn't ignore. The first was I came home from work, an average day, came home tired, exhausted, worked 10 hours, and so I opened the cupboards to find anything I could to eat. And I landed on the only edible thing I could find, a bag of stale pistachio nuts. I chopped them down. And then I feel this pulling on my leg, and it's my cat, and he wants to eat. So I throw some
Sure.
kibbles into his dish and I fall asleep on the couch. Okay, so good so far. I wake up to this horrific noise and I look up and it's my cat throwing up pistachio nuts. And I look down and I see the remnants of the cat food in my
Oh,
hand.
that
And I was was in such a mindless
Oh,
haze, I ate cat food for dinner. And so that happened, and that was kind of funny. And it was a wake up call that, Peggy, you're in this mindless haze. You're doing really dumb things. And it could have been a lot worse. I mean, I'm that person. I love my son. I adore my cat. I mean, he is my world.
oh, what's his name?
His that cat's
Yeah,
name was Dazzle,
Dazzle.
and he was my fur baby in every single way, and I put him in danger. I could have
Yeah, you
killed him.
did.
He
Oh,
doesn't have capacity to chew pistachio nuts.
no.
Most cats would have choked and died, and so there was that. But then I went back to life, and about 6 months later, my husband comes home and he says, I'm done. What do you mean you're done? He says, we're done. He says, you're so busy. You have no time for me. I've lost
Hmm.
all interest in you. I can't do this anymore. And he left. And then about 8 months after that, I was felt like failure, and I really wanted to maintain my career and be a super mom. So I just really worked hard at those things. And then I had a stress related heart attack.
Oh gosh.
And so it was just really time for me to listen to what was going on in my life and to realize that busyness doesn't always equate to success. And I was out of sync with the things that were important to me. And while my career is very important to me and will always be, I needed to be smarter about how I approached my work and the methodology I use to be happy, healthy, and work at peak performance.
So when you, well, so, and so sorry to hear about Dazzle, but that a cat eating pistachios. Now that after he survived, that's got to be the one of the funniest things I've heard in a minute. More, maybe more so you eating cat food. I don't know, but that I couldn't imagine a better wake up call for you. And in so you say you made a methodology there. What does that mean?
Well, I took a step back and I thought to myself, okay, what is the problem here? Too much to do, too little time. Okay, great. Then I dug into research. I wanted to get really smart about this subject. And that's when I learned that busyness is an addiction. We get a hit of a dopamine, and every time we get something done, we get a hit of adrenaline. So we want to do it again and again. So as I researched the whole thing of busyness, I really got to understand that busyness doesn't equal productivity. It doesn't equal a job well done. It doesn't equal all the things that we really want. And it certainly doesn't equate to well being and feeling like you've led a fulfilled, satisfied life. So when I started to do the research, I learned number one, 94% of the population is just like me, over the top busy, and wanted to be less busy. So I wasn't alone. Two, I learned that 61% of us set ourselves up for failure because we overstuff our days. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no time to get done what we
There,
want to
if
get
there's a
done.
little gap in there, if we have a 15-minute block, we'll put a 72-minute task in there.
We always underestimate the time that it's going to take to get something done. We were just talking about the HubSpot course I was
Yeah.
writing, and I estimated XYZ time, and guess what? It took me 2.5 times that.
And you're
And
the
so
expert in that field.
yeah, and so underestimating the time it's going to take is definitely a common thing we all escape into. So, I was looking at the facts. I was also seeing how our health was affected. 75% of individuals did not have time for basic self-care, like nourishing our brain, eating lunch, getting a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
going to the dentist, basic things that we really need to keep up, or else our health
Sure.
really downslides rather quickly. So after seeing all the data, and I really did, I researched thousands of people. I started to test for a solution. And it was not just about me because I wanted to escape this rat race, this hamster wheel I was on. But I also wanted to help other people because I realized that it was a universal truth that we all have too much to do and too little time to do it. So I started researching different methodologies about how to eliminate, how to escape time poverty, and more importantly, how to end your day feeling like you were satisfied, like you got the things done that you needed to do. You had time for family, you had a little bit of time for your health and for your happiness. And so what I learned along the way after 8 years of testing and retesting and testing
Oh,
and
eight
retesting,
years.
8 years,
8 years. Well, let it sink in for everybody. Most of us want to try something for at most 8 weeks, 8 months. Usually we give up at 8 weeks, but you tested for 8 years to make sure you get this right.
I tested for 8 years to make sure I got it right. And it wasn't like it was a failure from the start. It's just that as society was evolving, as COVID was happening, as different cultures were making micro changes, it needed to be molded and shaped to today and what's going on in today's world. So I really leaned into this is going to be results oriented, and we're going to keep on making changes until it works. And then we'll keep on making more changes to make sure that it reflects what's going on today. And I ended up with this busy busting process, a 3 step process. Step one is subtraction. It's about relieving that overwhelmed, overstuffed feeling. It's about eliminating low value activities that we don't even realize are low value. Interruptions. The other day, I was moving and a grooving on a spreadsheet. I was really getting it done. I was in the zone. My husband knocked on the door, and my instincts were to say, honey, I'm really involved. I'm focused. Can you come back when I'm done? But I didn't. I said, sure, honey, come on in.
You
What's
don't want to
going
be the
on?
bad guy. Pop on in, pumpkin. I got time for you.
Yeah. And he proceeded to tell me that we had no ketchup in the house and that our burgers were going to be ketchupless. And I thought to myself, I really don't care about ketchupless burgers. So I shooed him away and I started getting going on the spreadsheet again, but I forgot where I left off.
Yep.
I forgot the formulas I was using. I forgot the scenarios I was building. And it took me 18 minutes to get over switching from one task to
Yep.
another and get focused again. And there are lots of busy traps like that that actually end up taking us longer time to get to the finish line. You know, 83% of workers spend 1/3 of their time in
In their
meetings. No
inbox. Yep.
surprise, but a third of them are unproductive. So we're
And
wasting 5 hours a week in unproductive meetings. Why
e
why are we doing that?
easily that's and I don't mean to interrupt, but I get so excited because I love the first step you have there. And I tell people I've got my own little few steps, but elimination is by far my favorite one. And I always tell folks, you don't have to do it forever. Make it a 1 week experiment. And what you pointed out when the hubby pops in, we don't have any. And I do that to my wife. She has her own bookkeeping business at home. She is knee deep in spreadsheets, and I know not to interrupt her, and I do it every time. Have you seen Lane's cleats? What is, hey, I noticed some tomatoes out here. Can I? Yeah, but either way, and you getting back in 18 minutes is actually really good. Gloria Mark does this research every 5 years. I think it's UC Irvine, and they've estimated it takes us 23 minutes to get back to the same level of focus. But they do the same thing. They literally will strap people to computers. Let them start working. And they used to interrupt them. They don't even interrupt them anymore because we now self interrupt every 2 to 3 minutes. So Becky wouldn't have done this, but the average bear wouldn't have needed hubby to pop in and say, we're out of Heinz. They would have just said, I'm going to check Slack real quick. Oh, what? Somebody just texted because they have their notifications on. By the way, eliminate notifications, eliminate checking email. Sorry, Peggy, you were on a roll. Keep going. That's step one.
Yeah, step two is dealing with that busyness as an addiction and replacing it with a dopamine high. I wrote my first book on the neuroscience of happiness, and what I learned through researching for that book is that your brain lights up like a Christmas tree when you're happy. But the problem, and when we're happy, we can focus, we have more energy, we're in an elevated mood, we're more creative, we live a longer life, we fight chronic disease, all this really great stuff. But we think happiness is a destination, a place. I'm going to be happy when I
Mm-hmm.
finish this project, when I get to the weekend, when I get a new car. And that type of thinking really puts happiness out of our control and makes it something that we can't have daily in our life. And happiness is such a superpower that I found that when we take these micro moments, I call happiness rituals, and we have a couple of them in our day, whether it's for the individual or even at the organizational level, we get reset. We push the reset button. It's funny because this is before my 11 a.m. and every day at 11 a.m. you can't see this. I eat a piece of dark chocolate and my
Ooh, that looks like
ritual
Dove.
is to smell it, and I gotta tell you, just smelling it fills me up with joy and feel good. And then I pop it in my mouth and I close my eyes, and it's 3 minutes of chocolate bliss that doesn't take much time and much energy, but it lights me up. I'm focused, I'm energized, I'm ready to get back to work. And so the whole thing here in step number two, mojo making,
Oh,
is
Joe.
understanding that happiness is not a destination, it's not a thing. It's these micro moments. You know, you can have a cubicle dance party. You can, look at a stupid pet trick. You can hug your fur baby. Three,
Hmm.
4 minutes of things a couple of times a day that change everything. And then
The
step three is is really having a filter for how we spend our time. We get so many interruptions, we get pulled in so many directions. You know, time management is a $10 billion industry, and yet 94% of us don't have time for what's important. So time management is failing us. There are aspects of it that really work, but for the most part, the process of time management doesn't align what's important to us with how we spend our time. So I say values management, not time management, and align how you spend your time, make your decisions on what's valuable to you. And that sounds easy in practice until I started asking people what their values were.
how did
And
that
I,
go?
yeah, well, people place such a high importance on what their values are. They know they're critical, they know they're
Mm-hmm.
important, they know they equate to a well-lived life, but they're big. And so what I found was that people would Google their values, people would look at their neighbors, and they really had a hard time defining the things they needed in their life to end their day feeling like their cup was full. So, being a data geek, I researched 12,000 individuals, and what I learned is that there are four core values that equate to quality of life. And they
Ooh.
work in a professional level and they work in a personal level. So they're really well rounded. So, what are they? The first one is energy management. Managing your mood, managing your well-being, making sure you're making time for self-care. That adage that a car doesn't run without electricity or gas is true. We don't run when we're always running on empty. So self-care is really important. It's not a cliche, it's an essential thing. The second thing is growth. And when I grew up, my father was an immigrant and he came from World War II. He was in a prison camp. And when he came to the States, for him, he had to work hard. He had to be successful. He had to start all over again. And he always used to tell me as a young child, a day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And I asked him why he told me that later in life. And he said, when we grow, when we learn that we can do different things, we can try different things, we feel confident in our ability to pivot. In life, we pivot. In life, things happen. So, growth is really important. And building a growth mindset keeps you equipped to pivot in what can be a very moving and changing world.
I
So,
bet
that
that was probably very valuable to him while he was in prison
Well,
or in the
not only
camp.
in prison, but
Yeah.
he had a couple of days to come back to America and he lost everything and
Yeah.
he had to learn how to speak English. He had to learn how to get a job and make money. He was 13 years old. His parents,
Wow.
left him for days on end to become Americanized and to learn the language and learn the skills. So, he learned to not fear growth, but embrace it.
Sure. So we have energy management. That was growth. There's a couple more, or maybe I missed
Yeah,
one.
there's two more. The next one is human connection. And the Surgeon General says we're in a loneliness epidemic, regardless of all these touch points that we have through social media, that we're really not connecting on a human level. And I have a little bit of a story I want to tell about that one. I had a colleague that worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and he worked in sales and marketing and he was working on a really big proposal and just wasn't figuring out the secret sauce. So he
Hmm.
decided, you know what, I'm going to have everybody in my department work late. I know they've been working a lot of hours, but this is important. It's an opportunity. Let's get her done. And about an hour into the meeting, the security guard came over and basically said, "Hey guys, you're in a windowless conference room. There's a snow ban going on
Ooh.
outside. You cannot go anywhere for 6 hours." And Randy thought to himself, you know what? This is great. We're just going to work through this problem. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
sure
he
that's what the
picked
rest
up
of them
his,
thought.
yeah, he picked up his head and he looked around and he saw how exhausted his
Yeah.
people were, and he realized he was exhausted himself. But something else happened. He had this aha moment that he really wasn't connecting with his employees. His relationships became very
Hmm.
transactional. So he decided right then and there he was going to spend whatever time they had to spend in the conference room during the travel ban just talking, getting to know each other, understanding each other a little bit better. And the snow ban ended, they left. But what Randy noticed was after those 6 hours, his department was much more of a well oiled machine. They were anticipating each other's needs, they were supporting each other, they were
Sure.
performing better. And that quarter, when he measured his departmental metrics and employee engagement, they had both improved. And so human connection is just so critical to bottom line performance and to making people feel like they're valuable and they're part of the process. So, human connection is the third value, energy management, growth, human connection. And the
And
last one
oh,
is authenticity. And in today's world where we are all so polarized, so many
uh-huh.
different ways of being, I think it's important that we have the strength to stand up to our own truth. But I also think that authenticity involves some level of compassion and some level of empathy and being open minded towards different people, different ways of doing things, because truly we are better together, and we're in a world where we're so hard on each other, and God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason, and we need to listen more. We need to understand what people are thinking, because usually they've got something to say and something of value to add.
The authenticity thing, especially now more than ever, seems confusing for adults. I swear, anytime I scroll through anything or see somebody's quote unquote brand, it's like we're all back in middle school trying to reinvent ourselves. And because in elementary we were whatever. I was, he's a short, skinny kid, or he's the kid that fell asleep in math, or whatever. And now we're trying on this new persona, and you see so many adults that are rock stars and ninjas and wizards and all kinds of fun little things and coffee experts. But what you're saying is that, yeah, we if we don't kind of dig a little deep and figure out exactly, and I think that goes back to values, right? People think they've got values until they really start having to think about them. Like you're talking about, people had to Google them. I mean, I've worked with so many entrepreneurs, and before I start working with them on how to do more by doing less, like where do you want to spend your free time? Same thing. It's not value related, but people they don't know. So when they come back, it's like, well, I want to simple things. I want to go to the gym. I want to, like you said, I want to sleep more. I want to eat a little better. So those are value ish. But yeah, the
Well, it
authenticity piece,
falls under self-care.
it
And that's the
does.
beautiful thing with energy management, growth, human connection, and authenticity, is it actually covers everything, and it equates to a full cup at your end of your day. You are able to perform at work. You are able to take care of yourself. You are able to connect as a human being with other people. It's a process that works. On average, people get 5 to 7 hours back when they use this process. And I always tell people, what would you do if you
What
got
would you
five to
do?
seven hours back? Imagine the possibility, the life you would lead, the world we would live in if we all had a little more time for what's really important. And that's what this is all about,
Well,
focusing on the right things.
well, if you, I mean that's the equivalent, and I'm sure you already know this. That's the equivalent of 1 month a working. So little as 5 hours a day, and if you just make them work days, you don't need to say it's weekend, which you probably get more. But 5 times 50, we're taking 2 weeks off. 5 times 50, 250. Divide that by 8 hours a day. That's a working. That's an entire 31 day month. And I'm sure we could do a whole entire call about the next step out of that, because I've worked with people to do that, and then I didn't keep up with them. They didn't. We didn't retain me as a coach, and they filled that 31 days with more scrolling and more sadness. But that's a different topic for a different day. But Peggy is exactly right. Getting that 5 hours, 5 to 7 hours a week back is way easier than we make it out to be. With that being said, this flew by. Peggy, I always like to kind of wrap up here, and I know we got a dozen other things we could talk about, and we may do that another day. Well, I always wrap up by asking my guests what is something that they personally should be doing less of. And for you, you're probably more dialed in, but what's something you think you should be doing less of?
Well, I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to tell you another story. I
I love
had
stories.
a friend who worked at a bank, and from the outside, he was living a storybook life. He was vice president of a national bank. He traveled the world. He had a beautiful, happy, healthy family. Everything was great. But on the inside, he was actually overwhelmed, stressed, exhausted. He was in a deep state of time poverty. And then his daughter asked him to coach his soccer team.
Hmm.
And he thought to himself, oh, I want to do this. And then he thought, how can I? And then he thought, how can I not? So he decided to lean into coaching and said yes to coaching, but he also said yes to eliminating and focusing on one low value activity. He worked in an organization that had the biggest email rabbit hole. They sent out hundreds and hundreds of emails. It would not be unusual for him to get 400 or 500 emails running a department of 6,200. So he thought, you know what? If I'm getting stuck in this email rabbit hole, so is everybody around me. And so he wrote a note to all of his employees, thousands of them. He basically said, look, we communicate openly and freely, and that's a good thing, but maybe we do too much. And maybe we write too many emails that aren't
Mm-hmm.
really value oriented. So let's take a step back and let's think about every email we write. Don't push send unless you get value or you give somebody information that they really need to know. That single act cut down emails by 45% in his organization. He got 6.5 hours back per week. I mean,
Just from being copied on every single thing under the sun.
well, just by saying our paradigm isn't working,
Right.
this is where we're at. Let's try something different. I mean, we all get so used to this electronic communication, and hey, there's cake in the break
Right.
room, or
Got tomatoes on the counter. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just had a meeting. Here are all the notes. It just, I want to cover my butt. I want to make sure everybody knows. I want
Mm-hmm.
my boss to really know that I'm working hard. So I'm going to send him a
Want to make sure
report.
he
I
sees
mean,
that I sent that email at 5:45, which is after working hours.
right, right. We've gotten into a lot of habits that don't serve us. So it's about breaking those habits one at a time, and it's doable. So
So
I
Peggy,
didn't really answer your question,
but it's a
but
good answer. For most people, and I'm sure for you still, and for me still, and less check an email every 10 minutes. Check it twice a day, right after lunch, right before you cash out for the day, because most of that time is not well spent. So if you quit checking email, Peggy, what will that let, and I not quit checking email, but if you'll cut back on it, what does that let you do more of?
right. I worked with industrial psychologists and HR executives to understand that there are 21 busy traps that everyone gets stuck into. And we're not going to get into that. That's a conversation for
Sure.
another time. But I do have that survey up on my website, peggysullivanspeaker.com. And that's where I start with people. I have them take this 3-minute survey to understand where there's an opportunity for them to get back more time in their day. And that starts the whole thing because then we have fun, the happiness rituals, they're so joy inducing, they're so much fun, and the values vibing. I mean, it's so great to look at the end of your day saying, I had a productive day. I got my exercise in. I didn't compromise on the things that are important to me. So, and that's defining your values. So, there it is.
There it is. So if you want to get in touch with Peggy, you visit PeggySullivanSpeaker.com, and she's on a lot of the socials.
Yep.
Peggy,
And I quite honestly would love to hear from you. A lot of people feel hopeless. They're running on that hamster wheel and they just can't figure how to get off. Well, guess what? There's a way you can escape time poverty and turn it into time wealth.
had a baby. Peggy, thanks for hanging out with me today. Don't take off just yet. I've created a new program just for you. Join the time freedom community for entrepreneurs that want to work on their business instead of in their business. If you'd rather spend more time with family, friends, traveling, exercising, having the time to do what you want instead of, I don't know, putting out never ending fires, tackling another to do list, and checking email at 9 p.m., then go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. If you've created the income you want but don't have the time freedom you deserve, then this is for you. And as always, if you don't, an angel may actually lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.